All right, hello and welcome to Around the Horns, the show where we cover all things with the University of Texas baseball team. I am Aaron, and I am joined once again by my co-host Zach. Zach, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I'm confused by this cold, windy weather in March. It's baseball season. Come on, man. But no, everything's going well.
Yeah, no, I mean the baseball season weather is kind of come and gone. We got a brief stint of it there, and then we got tornadoes, and now hopefully we'll get back to some sunshine. But I guess we'll see. But since the last time we talked, Texas is taking care of business against some not so great teams, but they've been taking care of business nonetheless. They swept Incarnate Ward, scoring 41 runs in a 3-game series, and then they took care of the UCA Bears on Tuesday night with a 7-2 win. There were a lot of great individual performances in a lot of these games, but we expect that against inferior competition with a talented team like Texas. But what are some of the performances and some of the main takeaways you had over the last couple games since our last show?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was Texas rebounding after that, not disastrous, but, an arduous trip to South Carolina. They beat the Citadel. Shout out to Citadel for beating South Carolina. Actually, last dogpiling with the Service Academy members in the middle of the field. That was crazy to see. But, in that 4-game stretch, they scored, I think you said 41 runs over the weekend, plus another 19 of our Citadel. That was the first time since 93 that they had won 4 games in a row and scored 10 plus runs. So I think it was just Texas bouncing back, being comfortable, sleeping in their own beds, getting back into a normal routine. So that was good to see, because all teams are going to have, blips here and there. It's mandatory during college baseball season. But the fact that they continue to stay on that approach, they grind through it, they just follow what Pierce wants to see from them. So that's great.
Yeah, it was definitely good to see him battle through some adversity early in the year, because that's, like you said, it's going to happen to every team throughout the course of a long season. A couple guys I want to really point out that did really well in these past couple games. On Sunday, Lucas Gordon had an awesome start against Incarnate Ward. There's been a lot of talk about that Sunday starter ever since Tanner Witt's gone down. Texas is stretching a lot of guys out. Travis Staley's been stretched out, Lucas Gordon, Luke Harrison even a little bit. But Gordon really took command on Sunday, pitched an awesome game. I mentioned how I wanted to see him attack the bottom of the strike zone with his fastball slider changeup combo, and that's exactly what he was doing. He had, I believe, double-digit ground outs in that start. He just did a great job overall. So he's got that Sunday spot locked up for now. It'll be interesting to see how he does against better competition. But even with like the competition upgrade, I think for Lucas, if he's at the bottom of the zone with multiple pitches, he's going to get ground balls because he's going to keep hitters off balance. So that was really great to see. And then last night on Tuesday night, Justin Eckhart with his best start of his Longhorns career by far. He went 6 scoreless innings, which was a new career high for him. He had new career high in strikeouts with 7, no walks, even more importantly. He was filling up the strike zone all night. After the game, he was talking about how he's played with a lot of slider grips over his career, and he thinks he finally found one that he likes with Coach Allen. And you could really see that last night. He was flipping it in for a strike, and then he was registering a lot of strikeouts on that pitch. So, those guys might not be, you're not going to get 7 scoreless, 6 scoreless out of them every single time out. But the fact that they showed that they could go 6, 7 innings against, even against a bad team and just throw strikes, be efficient with their pitches, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. Last night, the only time Texas got in trouble is when they left balls hanging. A breaking ball hanging by Travis Staley got hammered, into the right field, which helped score a run. On Gordon, he doesn't have hard stuff, but he's got good stuff. I mean, he hits 92, 93, but he's able to locate. His trouble is when he gets behind in the count. I think he starts pressuring a little bit too much. He starts kind of overthrowing. When he lets himself just be comfortable, fluid in his motion, yeah, he's got really good run on his fastball. His breaking balls, it's a plus pitch, and then he's got that changeup, but he's been mixing in more. And it really throws those hitters off coming from the left-hand side. And then Eckhart, man, it's really cool to see this guy because he's always had a live arm coming out of Sealy. He had the TJ his freshman year. That was a huge blow. And then 2020 happens, he had 1 appearance and season shut down. I think he actually pitched in the very last game of the season in 2020. And then 2021, he basically hadn't pitched in 2 years. He had some command issues, which, going back to what you said about his grip on the slider, he just wasn't able to locate and really throw as hard as he wanted to. And, he's a guy I think has a lot of promise. And on Tuesday nights, if he can anchor that bullpen or anchor the starting rotation for Tuesday nights, I think that eases Pierce and Allen a lot, because now they're not having to try and extend Staley. They don't have to potentially move Harrison into a Tuesday role. Duplantier, he's just not all the way back. He doesn't have his speed yet, coming off of surgery. So yeah, that's a huge to the Texas pitching rotation.
Yeah, they're just looking for guys that can eat innings and give the team a chance to win. And Eckhart definitely showed the ability to do that. Same thing with Gordon on Sunday. And as we talked about before, as we get into conference play, we're going to see the relievers get extended a little more with Staley and Nixon and Harrison. So that'll be good to see. Okay, so and then I guess just hitting on the offense real quick, they looked really comfortable taking the ball the other way. They faced some soft tossing pitchers, which is always the best approach to have against soft tossing pitchers. Wait to see something out over the plate, drive it to the opposite field. Don't try to get too pull happy. So they did a really good job at doing that. And they also were able to take their walks over the weekend. So they've got a good balance of patience, power, and speed right now. So I do like to see that. You have anything to add on the Texas bullpen real quick before we move on? Or the Texas offense, sorry.
Yeah, on the Texas offense, it was a question I asked Pierce after, I think, the Friday night game against UIW. During the Citadel game, and even a little bit during the College of Charleston game, we saw them get a little more aggressive early in the at-bats. I was just, what's going on there? Is that a different change in tactics and strategy based on where the hitters are at, or what's happening? And he said, no, they're continuing to let the pitches come to them just as needed. And so he said there's going to be games where we're more aggressive early on because they have hittable stuff. And then, maybe against Texas Tech, we'll see them go back to that a little more passive approach and really try to get in depth 7-8 pitches every single at bat. So again, I think it's really good to see them be able to adjust on the fly. Tulo, every single hitter you talk to, man, he's got such an impact on this team. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, he's been doing a great job with those guys. And overall, they're really good at taking what the pitching staff gives them, whether that's going to be walks or it's going to be hittable pitches early in the count. They're doing a good job adapting. It'll still be really important to track the strikeouts against elite arms. They're going to see a couple this weekend in Lubbock. So we'll talk about that a little bit later when we preview the upcoming series against Texas Tech. But first, let's give out some awards, Zach. These are going to be our fun to watch awards. There's a lot of candidates after a really great weekend. I mean, there's Ivan, as always. We talked about Lucas. We talked about Justin Eckhart. But for me, there's only one right answer. And that is going to be my guy, Murphy Staley. You check the calendar right now. It is March. We got Murph Madness going on. He hit 4 homers over the weekend. He hit 3 homers on Sunday. Gave a great post-game interview. He's doing it all in the field. He's right near the top of the Big 12 in average hits, OPS. He's even near the top of the country in all those categories too. David Pierce finally moved into the 4-hole. He's doing a really good job protecting Ivan Melendez as he starts to see even more walks. Teams are being really careful pitching around him. Murph is just fun to watch, man. I'm going to keep harping on it until he cools off, and hopefully that day doesn't come.
Yeah, he went 1 for 5 last night against the Tuesday night team, and was disappointed. But if you look back at his hits and the way his at bats went, he hammered 3 balls to right field that, if it wasn't blowing so hard left to right, he probably has a chance to either knock him out of the park or they fall in, because they would have gone to the wall. So yeah, Murph he's something special right now. I keep thinking back to Mark Payton, but I mean, I don't even remember Mark Payton being on a tear like this. So he's been fun to watch. For me, I've got 2 guys. One is Skylar Messenger, who I'm not sure if there is I don't know who does a better post-game interview, whether it's Murph or Skylar, but you got to think both TV producers are thinking, gosh, someone else hit other than those guys, because they just don't have a lot to say. They're grinders, man. They come to the park and they grind. But Skylar Messenger started off with, just a rough season. In some ways, it really mimics what happened last year to Antico when he came in. He had a really rough start, and then the light bulb came on around this time, right before conference, and he went on a tear. Well, Skylar's hitting almost 500 over the past week. He's 13 for 21. He went for 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 last night.
4 for 4 last night. Yeah.
The guy's seeing the ball. He's removed some of that movement out of his head and his legs. He's letting his body just come through the ball. Again, Tulo having a huge impact. So it's really cool to see him hitting up 315. I think he's 122 points better than he was a week ago. And then the second guy for me, got to give some love to the pitchers. Coy Cobb. This is a guy that's programmed for 3 years now. Has never really made a big impact. He's had some issues with his arm slot, consistency, delivering the ball, repeatability, walking some guys, hitting some guys. But, in his limited outings, he's looked really good, I think, for Texas. And last night was no different. He came in and, he's a guy that's going to come in and show you something a little bit different, that running fastball that really throws hitters off. And so it's fun to see him kind of come into his own Texas program.
No, that's definitely a good call on Coy Cobb. Anytime a pitcher makes a drastic change with their arm slot, the biggest thing is it's going to be really difficult to throw strikes. But then when you go from a normal arm slot to a drop down 3/4 arm slot, that's the toughest transition you can make as far as throwing strikes, because you're going to leave pitches inside. I mean, we saw the alumni game, he was hitting batters, just letting those pitches run too far inside. But I mean, lately that just hasn't been the case. He's done a really good job throwing strikes. And when you can control your pitches from that arm slot, there's going to be movement. It's going to be hard to hit, and it's way different from anything else you see on the Texas pitching staff. So that's a great call there. He might even be someone, we continue to see throughout the year, and, more and more pressure packed spots as he continues to do well. So I definitely like that call.
Yeah, he seems to be, Allen and Pierce always talk about earning trust. He seems to be a guy that, continues to perform and has been earning that trust. So it'll be cool to watch.
Yeah, no, he's done a great job, and he seems like a great teammate as well. Pierce has talked about that in the past. All right, Zach, but we're 23 games in. It's finally time for some Big 12 baseball. It's been an up and down preseason, as we talked about, but Texas is coming in hot on a 5-game win streak. But they're going to be going into Lubbock to face a really good Texas Tech team. They're 18-4 right now. Tech is 11-0 at home, which is worth noting. They've played a relatively light schedule. They went 2-2 against some decent teams like Arizona, DBU, and then they split against Mississippi State, who's not having the best of years. We can watch all 3 games on ESPN Plus this weekend. But yeah, Zach, I'll let you talk a little bit about some specific guys to look out for on Texas Tech and the pitching matchups that we should see this weekend. Not official, but this is what we should see.
Yeah. Tech's an interesting team. They come in, they having lost a number of key pieces last year. Levi Wells, who we got to see against Texas State. He's pitching down there for them and doing a really good job. You saw Micah Dallas suddenly depart. He's A&M, and he's A&M's bullpen, ace guy right now, or starting ace right now. They're picked to finish 3rd in the Big 12. I think because of that, their whole new pitching rotation has really been turned over. Birdsell missed all of last year, or most of last year, with that rotator cuff injury. He's back, and he's looked as good as he ever has. I mean, guy has had 2 Tommy John surgeries, and he just continues to fight. He's fun to watch. He's a high strikeout guy, but Tadlock, you can never put away the hitting. They lost some big names from the hitting lineup, but dude, Jace Young at the top of the lineup is just a monster. He's arguably the best player in the Big 12. He'll get drafted the highest out of anyone in the Big 12.
No doubt, yep.
You have to watch out for him. And then if we look back at the 2021 season, Tech came into Austin and took 2 of 3. But interestingly enough, I think in the last 6 series, Texas has won all of them in Lubbock. So
yep.
Topsy-turvy, series that has continued to really be fun to watch over the years. Last year, Stevens took the loss. He went 6 innings, but gave up 5 runs. Just didn't, he just got touched up a little bit. It wasn't a bad outing necessarily, but they didn't get a lot of run support. And then Hansen entered the game in the first inning, actually, after Kubicek just somewhat melted down and couldn't get anything going, and looked really good. So I think Hansen has the ability to come back with another strong performance this weekend. Stevens, it's going to be important for him to not pitch to contact as much, which he has a tendency, because Lubbock plays a little small. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what goes on there. So
yeah, Stevens will definitely be important to keep the ball down, as it always is for him, but especially in those smaller ballparks that we'll see in Lubbock. But yeah, just taking a quick look at some of the starters that Texas will face. Morris is probably going to be the Friday night guy for Tech. He has been, at least up to this point in the year. He's been pretty good, but he hasn't done a great job working deep into games. So he could kind of fit the profile of a guy that Texas could really run up the pitch count against, try to get him out of the game early, get to see some arms in that Texas Tech bullpen, and that should help them throughout the whole series. And then you mentioned Birdsdale, the Saturday starter. He definitely fits the profile of a guy that has given Texas trouble in the past. Just this big power righty with a lot of strikeouts. We mentioned tracking the strikeouts for Texas against elite pitching. Saturday will definitely be a really good day to do that. They'll need to do a really good job of, just taking their emotion out of it. Don't let the crowd get too into it. The Texas Tech players, they'll be trying to fire up the crowd. The crowd will be trying to rile up the hitters. Stay within your approach, stick with the same approach you've had over the last couple of weeks, and continue to put the ball in play, put pressure on the defense. And then I did also notice they have a freshman closer, Trenton Parrish. He already has 5 saves this year. So it'll be interesting to see what he looks like in a pressure-packed scenario once we get into conference play. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned Jace Young. Texas kind of held him in check last year, pitched around him a little bit. He had some walks, but he didn't really go crazy against them. But yeah, so I mean, for a couple of keys to the series, I already mentioned it. It's going to be a hostile environment. Got to control your emotions. You can feed off the crowd to a certain point, but at the same time, if you get too into it, you'll end up trying to do too much, trying to hit home runs. And that's when the strikeouts might come. Same thing for the pitching staff. If you get too into it and the crowd's fired up, you might try to make those perfect pitches, the strikeout pitches, which could lead to you falling behind in counts. And that's where the Texas Tech offense can really get you. So I think those are some big keys. And then just on top of that, Pete Hansen and Tristan Stevens, I mean, they're the guys that have been there before. They've been in these types of situations, and they're the 2 horses for this pitching staff. So they both really need to step up. They need to eat a lot of innings. It's going to be hard. We love Travis Staley. We love Luke Harrison. They haven't been thrown into many environments in college baseball like the one they're going to see this weekend. So they might not be the exact same. So it'd be really good if Hansen could go 7, if Tristan could go 6 or 7, just to try to minimize, what those freshmen are, called on and what they have to do to get the ball to Aaron Nixon. So those are some things that really jumped out to me as far as what I'm going to be looking for Texas to have a good weekend in Lubbock.
Yeah. And I think, hitting is going to be important. It's interesting. If you look at the Friday night matchup and you look at the Saturday matchup, it somewhat benefits both teams to a certain extent. I think Texas has the edge on Friday, but then potentially Lubbock, Texas Tech has the edge in Lubbock against Tristan Stevens and having Birdsell on Saturday. So to me, I think it's down to that Sunday matchup, and it's going to be the battle of the Cali boys, the left-handers, which, who knew, right? Lucas Gordon, the sophomore, and then the freshman Mason Molina. I think kind of bear down and just do what you can to win on that Sunday game. It might see a lot more pitchers. One of the fun things that I saw out of this Texas team is, and it's rare, they actually have a better batting average than Tech does this year. Tech's hitting 290. They've hit less home runs than Texas. So that's interesting, especially how big the dish plays. But when Ivan's hitting 10 home runs, that obviously factors in there quite a bit.
Big deal.
He's not really a power guy, but he's got 5. Faltinia, never known for his massive power. He's got 6. So it'll be fun to see how those guys react into a smaller ballpark as well. Because there's going to be some hits. I mean, it's a hitter's park. I think echoing your statement on the series is, how does Stevens and Hansen look on Friday and Saturday against increased competition against South Carolina? Granted, there was a lot going in there.
Yeah.
With weather and travel and everything else, they didn't look great. The weekend before in Houston, they looked amazing. Do they pop back and look like their refined selves? Did they kind of work through some of the kinks this past weekend? We hope so. Staley's, I call it a pity inning. It's probably more like a tune-up inning, but Nixon and Harrison all got tune-up innings this weekend, which I think is big for them because they didn't look the sharpest, but they still have good stuff, and we've seen them against big teams. So I think it's going to be that after you get out of the starters, how does both teams react?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Just the level of pressure and the intensity. You can play those, series at Globe Life and at Minute Maid against good competition, but it's not the same pressure as a hostile environment on the road for a conference game that just means more when you're trying to win a Big 12 championship. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. There's going to be a lot of young relievers on this weekend, besides Aaron Nixon. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys respond for both teams. All right, Zach, let's give some picks here. And I believe for the first time all year, we do not have the same prediction. I'll let you go first.
Yeah. I think Texas goes 2-1. I think they win the Friday night game with Hansen. I think, he's just a better matchup against the Tech hitters than anyone else. I think they lose Saturday. I think Birdsell, he's 43 strikeouts on the year. Is that right? I just worry about Stevens when he gets into those smaller parks like at South Carolina. Those are hitters' parks, man. Those are tough when he's a contact pitcher. And then I think they bounce back Sunday, and I think they secure the win over the freshman Molina. Maybe Beard shows up and sits in the dugout for Texas, and really just puts it to Tech. But no, I think Texas can go 2-1. They've always done really well in Lubbock, so let's see how they do.
Yeah, I had a really hard time with this one. I went back and forth. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for the Tech team. I think they're a really good team. They've got a lot of power bats, probably the best lineup that Texas has seen outside of maybe Tennessee and LSU this year. But in that home park, that could give them even more of a bump over those offenses. I've got Tech taking the series, going 2-1. I'm not going to pinpoint the exact games. At the end of the day, I think these are really similar teams. On a neutral field, I would probably say Texas is a little bit better, but I'll probably just go with home field on this one. I'll say Tech finds a way to win 2 out of 3. It's going to be a crazy environment, but I hope I'm wrong. It should be a really good series. I think there's going to be a lot of exciting games, and it's going to be really fun to watch. But I'll give Tech the slight edge at home. But I'm excited to watch this one. Zach, Texas Tech is not. It's one of the biggest series of the weekend, no doubt, but it's not the only one. So what else has caught your eye around the country and some series to look forward to this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, Texas and the rest of the Big 12 get started this weekend with conference play, but actually conference play technically started last weekend when TCU went to Baylor. TCU came away with 2 wins, but that was honestly a series that could have gone either way. That Saturday night game went 11 innings. Baylor gave up 3 runs in the 9th and then 3 runs in the 11th, but they were right in it to the end. The Tuesday nights have just been a crazy ride. Ole Miss gets ranked number 1 over Texas. They immediately dropped their first game to Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah. It is what it is. You're number 1, you're going to have a bullseye on your back. Some other Tuesday night games, we had Wake Forest over Liberty, Lipscomb over Louisville, Coastal Carolina over Clemson, and then UIW, the Cardinals, who Texas just absolutely murdered this past week and ends up going and beating Texas State. So
took out that anger.
Yeah. Texas has a way of beating up on teams and making them angry. No, the couple of series I am looking forward to this weekend outside of Texas versus Tech. Number 1, Ole Miss versus number 5, Tennessee. I at this point in the season, I have a tough time telling people that Vols are the best team in the nation. I think they are. They hit, they pitch. If you look at all the categories, they're at the top or top 5.
So my main thing with Tennessee is when people try to make the argument they're the best team is they've played really well. They might have played the best so far, but
they haven't
I want to see what they do outside of their home ballpark, which they're going to be at Ole Miss this weekend, I believe.
Yep, they're at Swayze. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal because, let's just say Tennessee plays in that Cracker Jack ballpark. It's perfectly built for their team, which is smart for them to build a team that way. But I am very interested to see what they do on the road this weekend.
Yeah, that series to me is going to be a season-defining one for them because, they lost to Texas down in Houston. How do they on to the number 1 team coming in, or not coming to them, but them going to the number 1 team? The other series that I really want to see is Virginia. They're 18 or 19-1. Loff is leading the nation in homers. Their pitching has been solid. And they're playing Wake Forest. Those guys are murdering the ball. Are they playing with beach balls out there? What's the ACC? All those guys are just hammering it. And then going out west a little bit, Arizona versus UCLA. Obviously, we saw UCLA versus Texas down in Houston. Arizona lost 2 of 3 to Texas State, but they also just swept Stanford. I want to get a feel for them because I think they're an Omaha caliber team. I just don't think they have the bullpen. And so it'd be interesting to see how they go against more top tier competition. And then finally, Georgia Tech versus NC State, purely because of Georgia Tech's hitting, and then Tommy Tanks continues to hit the ball. So I want to see some home runs.
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting weekend around the country. I mean, we've got Texas Tech to lock in on, all those series you just mentioned. If you are a basketball fan, there's going to be awesome basketball games on. Got to find a way to have multiple monitors. Got to have, the TV on one thing, get the laptop firing on something else, get the phone firing up. Just take in as many sports as you can. It's going to be a great weekend for all of that. But yeah, no, that's a great summary of what's going on around college baseball. There continues to be a lot of upsets. And with that, I think that is going to do it for another episode of Around the Horns. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube page, like the video, leave a comment. You can also give us a follow on Twitter. You can find me at Aaron Little OB. You can find Zach at the Dish. Check us out on orangebloods.com. There's all kinds of stuff going on over there with all kinds of different writers and, people making videos, podcasts. We've got baseball, obviously. We've got women's basketball. They're in the Sweet 16. Spring football just got started on Tuesday. You already know Texas and Orange Bloods has a lot of content about the football team rolling out. So, yeah, check out orangebloods.com. There's a lot of good stuff over there. And with that, we'll see everyone next week, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.